I found myself caught in an emotional storm that I hadn't seen coming, a tempest brewed by my wife's jealousy, which emerged in ways I'd never witnessed before. It all began when I stepped into a new management role at work, a position that didn't just demand I lead a team, but also required me to recruit fresh talent. Among the new hires was a young woman named Angie, whose presence soon rippled through my home life in ways I couldn't have anticipated. My wife, who had always been a pillar of confidence in our relationship, started showing signs of insecurity that felt foreign to me, like a language I hadn't learned to decipher. When I first took on the job, I was riding a wave of excitement. I felt assured in my leadership skills, throwing myself into team-building exercises, and watching the group coalesce under my guidance. The promise of promotion glimmered on the horizon, fueling my enthusiasm even more. But the atmosphere shifted one evening when NG, with a playful grin, tossed out a casual remark about wanting to come back to bed. It was a throwaway line, meant as a joke during a light-hearted moment after a long workday, but it landed like a stone in my wife's heart. I saw her face drain of color, her eyes narrowing as a thick tension settled over us like fog. I tried to laugh it off, hoping to diffuse a moment, but the damage was done. Her trust seemed to crack right before my eyes. In the days that followed, I told myself that if I just acted normal, she'd see there was nothing to worry about. NG was just a colleague, nothing more. But then came a meeting where NG, in her carefree way, perched on the edge of my desk while we reviewed some paperwork. It was innocent, an absent-minded habit of hers, but to my wife, who'd stopped by the office unexpectedly, it was a scene painted with betrayal. She didn't say a word as she turned and left, but her silence screamed louder than any argument. That night, the air between us grew heavy with unspoken accusations, and I realized how quickly things were unraveling. The tension festered, and soon my wife withdrew completely, wrapping herself in a cocoon of silence that left me stranded on the outside. We were living under the same roof but felt miles apart, two strangers sharing a space. Her insecurity had taken root, sprouting doubts I didn't know how to uproot. Desperate for a lifeline, I turned to friends and family, spilling out the messy details of our situation. Their advice was a mixed bag. Some urged me to fire NG, insistent it was the only way to reassure my wife, while others thought her reaction was overblown, a storm in a teacup. I felt trapped, torn between my loyalty to my marriage and my responsibility to be fair at work. Looking back, I began to see where I might have gone wrong. I'd brushed off my wife's concerns too easily in the past, assuming she'd always be the unshakable partner I'd known her to be. I hadn't taken the time to really listen, to dig into why she felt so threatened. Determined to fix things, I sat down with my boss and laid it all out, the awkward comments, the desk incident, the strain of home. After a long talk, I made the tough call to let NG go. Her joking remark had crossed a line, and though she hadn't meant any harm, it gave me a concrete reason to act. When I told my wife, she nodded in approval, a flicker of relief in her eyes. I thought it might be the first step toward rebuilding what we'd lost. But NG's exit didn't erase the hurt. My wife's insecurity lingered like a stubborn shadow, darkening even the quiet moments we shared. I could see it in the way she looked at me, wounded, uncertain, and it tore at me. I hated knowing I played a part in putting that pain there, even if unintentionally. We decided to try counseling, a lifeline I clung to with both hands. Sitting across from her in those sessions, I listened as she unraveled her fears, her voice trembling with emotions she kept bottled up. I spoke, too, admitting my missteps, my failure to see how my actions or inaction had fed her doubts. It was raw and messy, but it felt like a start. Weeks into counseling, she told me she needed space to sort through her feelings. It wasn't rejection, she said, just a pause to breathe. I respected that, even though it hurt like hell. I packed a bag and moved in with my parents, a temporary exile that left me aching for her every day. Lying awake in my childhood bedroom, I replayed our story, how we'd gone from a rock-solid partnership to this fragile, fractured thing. I missed the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her hand in mine, the way we used to navigate life as a team. Work, once a source of pride, now felt like a balancing act I couldn't quite master, a reminder how easily ambition could tangle with love. Each day apart sharpened my resolve. I learned that communication isn't just words. It's seeing, really seeing, the person you promised your life to. I texted her sometimes, small messages to let her know I was still here, still fighting for us. She'd reply occasionally, brief but not cold, and it kept the thread of hope alive. I didn't know how long it would take to bridge the gap, but I was willing to wait, to work, to listen. Our marriage wasn't perfect, and maybe it never had been, but it was ours. And I'd do whatever it took to find our way back to each other, one careful step at a time.